and welcome. This is Brady Westmet live from the Forbidden Library. Do you like my suit? I've got a Christmas outfit, but when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, I could have had a cute Santa dress. Of course. There was loads of those, but then I was like, no. Suit. I would like to be dapper, even though the tie doesn't work too well with the tattoo. Let me show you that. It's very confused about my bosom. However, it is wonderful. I love it. Christmas drip. Heck yeah. Hello, everyone. And welcome. Hi, Double-Sized Phantom. Hi, Void Dweller. Hi, Rahel. Hi, Exnum. Hi, Cool Skeleton 24. Welcome to the day in which we read the Wuthering Heights. Normally, on these Sunday streams, I would update my 100-book spreadsheet. My 10th... I called it my 100-book spreadsheet. That's what the file is called, but really it's my 10,000-book spreadsheet. Because it's me keeping track of my 10,000 books. Until freedom, you know? But I didn't actually read anything this week. Boo. Boo me. I started reading, for those, I don't know, noughties anime fans, 2010s anime fans, you may recognize the name Carnival. I'm partway through reading my second volume of that, but they're really chunky volumes. Really chunky manga volumes, so I may be a third of the way through this. You can't see it, but I'm holding it. That's all the reading I've done, and it doesn't count! Yet. However, we will work towards our next one. 10,000 books in the air. My favorite to start. 10,000 dicks in the air. Good song. It is a good song. Not sure if it's my favorite Disturbed song now. Yeah, what is disturbing? Wuthering Heights is disturbing. It's very disturbing. What's disturbing about it? Heathcliff is disturbing about it right now. Heathcliff needs to stop flirting with a child. Oh my god, how do I even start explaining what has happened in this book to you? Where do we even start? Right, so we're still kind of working through a flashback here. The flashback of Miss Nellie spilling all the tea to the current resident of Thrushcross Grange, a property owned by the owner, Mr. Heathcliff, of Wuthering Heights. She is spilling the tea of Mr. Heathcliff's backstory, which revolves around him and two siblings, one... I can't remember. And a Catherine. So, their daddy died. The big brother hated Heathcliff because his daddy liked Heathcliff better than he. This is a horror book, right? No, it's a drama book. This is a telenovela book, is what this is. Definitely not horror. Although it's horrific, the amount of drama that's happened. Recap. Everyone is crazy and is determined to make it everyone else's problem. Yes! Pretty much. So, when the brother took over the household, he basically made Heathcliff a actual slave when Heathcliff was an adopted son, basically. He was picked up in Liverpool. We think he is maybe Romanian. He is called a gypsy a lot and looked down on. So, then you have Catherine, who spent some time with the Lintons, who lived at Thrushcross Grange, to become a lady, and got very in with their son. However, that meant that she couldn't quite be friends with Heathcliff as much, even though she loved Heathcliff. Her plan was to marry the Linton's son so that she could pay for Heathcliff to exist. However, Heathcliff heard this and ran away for a long time. Catherine married Mr. Linton, and they lived happily, not so happily. That's a lie, no one's living happily ever after here. And then Heathcliff eventually turned up one day, and Mr. Linton was like, hey, this ain't great. And she's like, no, he's back, the love of my life is back. Obviously she didn't say it in those words, the love of my life is back, and I'm so happy. Problem is, her sister-in-law, the young Miss Linton, started having a big old crush on Mr. Heathcliff because he kept coming around a lot. And she's a baby. She's just a teenage baby. So, in order to push away this, Catherine tried to embarrass her in front of Heathcliff and, like, expose her crush. And she thought that Heathcliff would just, like, brush it off and that would be that. But then she saw Heathcliff stealing a smooch in the garden from the young girl. And is like, oh no. And then he nearly got into fisticuffs with Mr. Linton over it. But Mr. Linton is a little bit of a... I'm not going to call him a coward, honestly. Because he was smart. Heathcliff is built like a brick shithouse by the sounds of it. So he ran off to go get people to help take Heathcliff down. And Catherine did a stupid thing of taking the key away. And then everything kind of exploded and Heathcliff's not allowed to come round anymore. He's been banished. Someone get Kendrick on this. Someone needs to get Kendrick on this. Yes, very much so. E minor. I think that's about where we were off. That's the best, most succinct recap I could give you. So shall we continue with the drama? While Miss Limpton moped about the park and garden, always silent and almost always in tears, and her brother shut himself among books that he never opened, wearying, I guess, with a continual vague expectation that Catherine, repeating her conduct, would come of her own accord to ask pardon and seek a reconciliation. Oh yeah! So Catherine still wants Heathcliff around, and so she's arguing with her husband on this. Okay, I just had a thing. Hey, Bryony, where do you buy the cringe cleaning substance? I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh yeah, Catherine tried to like fake having a fit or some shit because she thought it would make sure her... Sorry, I just realized my bunting isn't where I want it to be. There we go. That looks better. There we go. She tried to like fake a fit so that her husband would take pity on her and allow Heathcliff to come back. But no, that's not gonna happen. And seek reconciliation. And she fasted pertinaciously under the idea, probably that at every meal Edgar was ready to choke for her absence, and pride alone held him from rushing to cast himself at her feet. I went about my household duties, convinced that the Grange had but one sensible soul in its walls, and that lodge is my body. Nelly being like, I am the only sane person here. I wasted my condolences on Miss, nor any exaltations on my mistress, nor did I pay much attention to the sights of my master, who yearned to hear his lady's name, since he might not hear her voice. I determined they should come about as they pleased for me, and though it was a tiresome, slow process, I began to rejoice at length in a faint dawn of its progress, as I thought at first. Mrs. Linton, on the third day, unbarred her door, and having finished the water in her pitcher and decanter, desired a renewed supply, and a basin of gruel, for she believed she was dying. I mean, if she hasn't been eating for 3 days, she might be. Not eating for 3 days to kill yourself on spite. Nelly be like, these rich motherfuckers drive me up the wall. Yes! Correct. That I set down as a speech meant for Edgar's ears. I believed no such thing, so I kept myself and brought her some tea and dry toast. She ate and drank eagerly and sank back on her pillow again, clenching her hands and groaning. "Oh, I will die," she exclaimed, "since no one cares anything about me." I wish I had not taken that. When a good while after I heard her murmur, "No, I will not die." He'd be glad. He does not love me at all. He would never miss me. Me after feeling pain in my chest, my time has come. I get that. I do that, and I hate it. I hate that I'm so paranoid about that. Did you want anything, ma'am? Ew, I'm going to die! Did you want anything, ma'am? Oh, Nelly. I inquired, still persevering my external composure. Still preserving my external composure in spite of her ghastly countenance and a strange, exaggerated manner. "What is that apathetic being doing?" she demanded, pushing the thick, entangled locks from her wasted face. "He has fallen into lethargy, or is he dead?" "Neither," I replied. "If you mean Mr. Linton, he is tolerably well, I think, though his studies occupy him rather more than they ought. He is continually among his books, since he has no other society." My tracking has been updated, so it's sometimes picking up the arm I have resting on my desk, and sometimes it isn't, so that's why that arm is doing that, just so you know. I should not have spoken as if I had known her true condition. I should not have spoken if I had known her true condition, but I could not get rid of the notion that she acted a part of her disorder. "Among his books?" she cried, confounded. "And I dying on the brink of the grave! My God, does he know how I'm altered?" Continued she, staring at her reflection in a mirror hanging against the opposite wall. Is that Catherine Linton? He imagines me a pet, in play perhaps. Cannot you inform him that it is frightfully earnest? Nelly, if it be not too late, as soon as I learn how he feels, I'll choose between these two. Either to starve at one, that would be no punishment unless he had a heart, or to recover and leave the country. Are you speaking the truth about him now? Take care. Is he actually so utterly indifferent for my life?" "Why, ma'am," I answered, "the master has no idea of your being deranged, and of course he does not fear that you will let yourself die of hunger." "You think not? Cannot you tell him I will?" she returned. "Persuade him. Speak of your own mind. Say you are certain I will." "No, you forget, Mrs. Linton," I suggested, "that you have eaten some food with a relish this evening, and tomorrow you will perceive its good effects." "If I were only sure it would kill him," she interrupted, "I'd kill myself directly. These 3 awful nights I've never closed my lids. And, oh, I've been tormented. I've been haunted, Nelly. But I begin to fancy you don't like me. How strange. I thought, though everybody hated and despised each other, they could not avoid loving me. And they have all turned to enemies in a few hours. They have. I'm positive. The people here! How dreary to meet death surrounded by their cold faces. Isabella terrified and repelled, afraid to enter the room. It would be so dreadful to watch Catherine go. And Edgar standing solemnly by to see it over, then offering prayers of thanks to God for his restoring peace to his house and going back to his books. What in the name of all that feels that has he to do with books? When I am dying. It is so hard not to laugh halfway through the monologues. Oh, lordy. She could not bear the notion which I had put into her head of Mr. Linton's philosophical resignation. Tossing about, she increased her feverish bewilderment to madness, and tore a pillow with her teeth, and then raising herself up, all burning, desired that I would open the window. We were in the middle of winter. The wind blew strong from the northeast, and I objected. Both the expressions flitting over her face and the changes of her mood began to alarm me terribly, and brought to my recollection her former illness, and the doctor's injunction that she should not be crossed. A minute previously she was violent now, supported on one arm, and not noticing my refusal to obey her, she seemed to find childish diversion in pulling the feathers from the rents she had just made, and ranging them on the sheets according to their different species. Her mind had strayed to other associations. "That's a turkey's," she murmured to herself, "and that's a wild duck's, and this is a pigeon's. Ah, they put pigeon feathers in the pillows. No wonder I couldn't die. Let me take care to throw it on the floor when I lie down. And here's our moorcock's. And this, I should know it among 1,000. It's a larping's, bonny bird wheeling over our heads in the middle of the moor. It wanted to get to its nest, for the clouds had touched the swells, and it felt rain coming. This feather was picked up from the heath. The bird was not shot. We saw its nest in the winter full of little skeletons. Heathcliff set a trap over it, and the old ones dared not come. I made him promise that he'd never shoot a larping after that, and he didn't. Yes, here are more. Did he shoot my larpings, Nelly? Are they red, any of them? Let me look. Give over with that baby work, I interrupted, dragging the pillow away and turning the holes towards the mattress, for she was removing its contents by handfuls. Lie down and shut your eyes. You're wandering. There's a mess. The down is flying about like snow. I went here and there collecting it. I see you, Nelly, she continued dreamily. An aged woman. You have grey hair and bent shoulders. This bed is it's the fairy cave under Penistone Crags, and you are the gathering elf bolts to hurt our heifers, pretending, while I am near, that they are only locks of wool. That's what you'll come to 50 years hence. I know you are not so now. I'm not wandering. You're mistaken. Or else I should believe you really were that withered hag, and I should think I was under Penistone Crags, and I'm conscious it's night, and there are 2 candles on the table making the black press shine like jet. The black press? Where is that? I asked. You are talking in your sleep. Feels like something you'd see in a heart, a vagrant comic. It's against the wall, as it always is, she replied. It does appear odd. I see a face in it. There's no press in the room, and never was, said I, returning my seat and looping up the curtain that I might watch her. Don't you see that face? She inquired, gazing earnestly at the mirror. And say what I could, I was incapable of making her comprehend it be her own, so I rose and covered it with a shawl. It's behind there still, she pursued anxiously. And it's stirred. Who is it? I hope it will not come out when you are gone. Oh, Nelly, the room is haunted. I'm afraid of being alone. I took her hand in mine and bid her be composed, for a succession of shudders convulsed her frame, and she would keep straining her gaze towards the glass. There's nobody here, I insisted. It was yourself, Mrs. Linton. You knew it a while since. Myself? she gasped. And the clock is striking 12. It's true then. That's dreadful. Her fingers clutched her clothes and gathered them over her eyes. I attempted to steal to the door with an intention of calling her husband, but I was summoned back by a piercing shriek. The shawl had dropped from the frame. Why, what is the matter? cried I. Who is coward now? Wake up! That is the glass, the mirror, Miss Linton, and you see yourself in it, and there I am, two by your side. Trembling and bewildered, she held me fast, but the horror gradually passed from her countenance. Its paleness gave place to a glow of shame. Plucking pigeon feathers prior to preparing the preparation to press the preposterous to comprehend. Oh, Sonny, that was a wonderful comment to give me. Oh dear, I thought I was at home, she sighed. I thought I was lying in my chamber at Wuthering Heights. Because I'm weak, my brain got confused and I screamed unconsciously. Don't say anything, but stay with me. I dread sleeping. My dreams appall me. A sound sleep would do you good, ma'am, I answered, and I hope this suffering will prevent your trying starving again. Oh, if I were but in my own bed in the old house, she went on, bitterly wringing her hands, and that wind sounding in the firs by the lattice. Do not let me feel it. It comes straight down the moor. Do let me have one breath. To pacify her, I held the casement ajar a few seconds. A cold blast rushed through. I closed it and returned to my post. She lay still now, her face bathed in tears. Exhaustion of body had entirely subdued her spirit. Our fiery Catherine was no better than a wailing child. How long is it since I shut myself in here? She asked, suddenly reviving. It was Monday evening, I replied, and this is Thursday night, or rather Friday morning at present. What? Of the same week? She exclaimed. Only that brief a time? Long enough to live on nothing but cold water and ill temper, observed I. That's how we all should live, on cold water and ill temper. And tea. I don't know what happened to my bottle when I did that. I was just drinking my tea! What do you mean I've only been brooding for 4 days? It's not been... She probably thinks it's been months or some shit. Well, it seems a weary number of hours, she muttered doubtfully. Well, it seems a weary number of hours, she muttered doubtfully. It must be more. I remember being in the parlour after they had quarrelled, and Edgar being cruelly provoking, and me running into this room desperate. As soon as ever I had barred the door, utter blackness overwhelmed me, and I fell on the floor. I couldn't explain to Edgar how certain I felt of having a fit, or going ragged mad, if he persisted in teasing me. I had no command of tongue or brain, and he did not guess my agony. Perhaps it barely left me sense to try to escape from him and his voice, before I recovered sufficiently to see and hear. It began to be dawn, and Nellie, I'll tell you what I thought, and what has kept recurring and recurring, till I feared for my reason. Yes, Edgar was provoking. Edgar's always the problem, not Catherine. I thought as I lay there with my head against that table leg, and my eyes dimly discerning the grey square of the window, that I was enclosed in the oak-panelled bed at home, and my heart ached with some great grief which, just waking, I could not recollect. I pondered and worried myself to discover that it could be what it could be, and most strangely, the whole last 7 years of my life grew a blank. I did not recall what they had been at all. I was a child. My father was just buried, and my misery arose from the separation that Hindley had ordered between me and Heathcliff. I was laid alone for the first time, and arousing from a dismal doze after a night of weeping, I lifted my hand and pushed the panels aside, and it struck the tabletop. I swept it along the carpet, and then memory burst in. My late anguish was swallowed in paroxysm of despair. I cannot say why I felt so wildly wretched. It must have been temporary derangement, for there is scarcely cause. But suppose at 12 years old I had been wrenched from the heights, and every early association, and my all in all as Heathcliff was at the time, and being converted at a stroke into Mrs. Linton, the lady of Thrushcross Grange, and the wife of a stranger, an exile, an outcast henceforth from what had been my world. You may fancy a glimpse of the abyss where you grovelled. Shake your head as you will, Nelly. You have helped to unsettle me. You should have spoken to Edgar. Oh, it's not Catherine's fault. If it's Edgar's fault, it's not Catherine's fault. It's Nelly's fault. Do you know Jim Carrey's Mr. Popper Penguin movie? The secret Pippi almost every sentence word starts to let it be. Oh, that's pretty cool. Catherine be like, causing generational family drama couldn't be me. You should have spoken to Edgar, indeed you should, and compelled him to leave me quiet. Oh, I'm burning. I wish I were out of doors. I wish I were a girl again, half savage and hardy and free, and laughing at injuries, not maddening under them. Why am I so changed? Why does my blood rush into a hell of tumult at a few words? I'm sure I should be myself were I once among the heather on those hills. Open the window again, wide. Fasten it open, quick. Why don't you move? Because I won't give you your death of cold, I answered. You won't give me a chance of life, you mean, she said sullenly. However, I'm not hopeless yet. I'll open it myself. And sliding from the bed before I could hinder her, she crossed the room, walking very uncertainly, threw it back and bent out, carelessness of the frosty air that cut about her shoulders as keen as a knife. I entreated and finally attempted to force her to retire, but as soon as I found her delirious strength much surpassed mine, she was delirious, I became convinced by her subsequent actions and ravings. Nelly needs a raise. To be fair, Nelly probably still had a better time leaving Wuthering Heights for Thrushcross Grange than she would have had staying at Wuthering Heights. As much as she had her kid there that she adopted, she still would have had to have played hide and seek with him a lot, and that wouldn't have been fun. So I still think this is a better life for her than what she would have had if she stayed at Heights. There was no moon, and everything beneath lay in misty darkness. Not a light gleamed from any house far or near. All had been extinguished long ago, and those at Wuthering Heights were never visible. She asserted, she caught their shining. What a depressing statement. I know, right? Look, she cried eagerly. That's my room with the candle in it, and the trees swaying before it. And the other candle is in Joseph's garret. Is in Joseph's garret. Joseph sits up late, doesn't he? He's waiting till I come home, and he may lock the gate. Well, he'll wait a while yet. It's a rough journey, and a sad heart to travel it. and we must pass by Gimmerton Kirk to go that journey. We braved it, ghosts, often together, and dared each other to stand among the graves and ask them to come out. But, Heathcliff, I dare you now. Will you venture? If you do, I'll keep you. I'll not lie there by myself. They may bury me 12 feet deep and throw the church down over me, but I won't rest till you are with me. I never will. She paused and resumed with a strange smile. He's considering. He'd rather I come to him. Find a way, then. Not through that kirkyard. You are slow. Be content. You always followed me. Perceiving it vain to argue against her insanity. Wonderful sentence. I was planning how I could reach something to wrap about her without quitting my hold of herself, for I could not trust her alone by the gaping lattice. When, to my consternation, I heard the rattle of the door handle, and Mr. Linton entered. He had only then come from the library, and, in passing through the lobby, had noticed our talking, and been attracted by curiosity or fear to examine what significance at that late hour. "Oh, sir!" I cried, checking the exclamation risen to his lips at the sight which met him, and the blank atmosphere of the chamber. "My poor mistress is ill, and she quite masters me. I cannot manage her at all. Pray come and persuade her to go to bed. Forget your anger, for she is hard to guide any way but her own." "Catherine? Ill?" he said, hastening to her. "Shut the window, Ellen. Catherine, why?" Catherine, why could be another title for this book. Heathcliff this, Heathcliff that. Why don't you just marry? A party of pigeon provoking the pupils of the eyes at a gaze, and the puppies near each of her moment picking their prey as if it's possible they want to pressure their own pleasure. Words. He was silent. The haggardness of Mrs. Linton's appearance smote him speechless, and he could only glance at her, to me in horrified astonishment. "She's been fretting here," I continued, "and eating scarcely anything, and never complaining. She would admit none of us till this evening, and so we couldn't inform you of her state, as we were not aware of it ourselves, but it is nothing." Alternative titles could be Catherine Y and Heathcliff No. Yes! I felt I uttered my explanations awkwardly. The master frowned. It is nothing, is it? Is it nothing, is it, dear Ellen Dean?" he said sternly. "You shall account more clearly for keeping me ignorant of this." And he took his wife in his arms and looked at her with anguish. At first she gave him no glance of recognition. He was invisible to her abstract gaze. The delirium was not fixed. However, having weaned her eyes from contemplating the outer darkness by degrees, she centered her attention on him, and discovered who it was that held her. Honestly, you should make a book of that, like each chapter themed around a letter. That's a cool idea. "Ah, you are come, are you, Edgar Linton?" she said with angry animation. "You are one of those things that are ever found when least wanted, and when you are wanted, never! I suppose we shall have plenty of lamentations now. I see we shall. But they can't keep me from my narrow home out yonder, my resting place, where I'm bound before spring is over. There it is, not among the Lintons, mind, under the chapel roof, but in the open air with a headstone, and you may please yourself whether you go to them or come to me." "Catherine, what have you done?" I commenced the master. I am nothing to you. Am I nothing to you any more? Do you love that wretch Heath— Hush! Cried Mrs. Linton. Hush this moment! You mention that name. I end the matter instantly by a spring of the window that you touch at present. You may have, but my soul will be on that hill, on that hilltop before you lay hands on me again. I don't want you, Edgar. I'm past wanting you. Return to your books. I'm glad you possess a consolation, for all you had in me is gone. Her mind wanders, sir, I interpose. She has been talking nonsense the whole evening. But let her have quiet and proper attendance, and she'll rally. Hereafter we must be cautious how we vex her. I desire no further advice from you, answered Mr. Linton. You knew your mistress's nature, and you encouraged me to harass her, and not to give me one hint of how she has been these 3 days. It was heartless. Months of sickness could not cause such a change. I began to defend myself, thinking it too bad to be blamed for another's wicked waywardness. I knew Mrs. Linton's nature to be headstrong and domineering, cried I, but I didn't know that you wished to foster her fierce temper. I didn't know that to humour her I should wink at Mr. Heathcliff. I performed the duty of a faithful servant in telling you, and I have got a faithful servant's wages. Well, it will teach me to be careful next time. Next time you may gather intelligence for yourself. Bro. Wuthering Heights, hold up. This might be Heathcliff. Yep. Well, Heathcliff's not in this scene. We haven't seen him this stream so far, but this chapter, bro. The next time you bring a tale to me, you shall quit my service, Ellen Dean, he replied. You'd rather hear nothing about it, I suppose, then, Mr. Linton, said I. Heathcliff has your permission to come a-courting to Miss, and to drop in at every opportunity your absence offers, on purpose to poison the mistress against you. Confused as Catherine was, her wits were alert at applying our conversation. Ah! Nelly has played traitor, she exclaimed passionately. Nelly is my hidden enemy. You witch! Do you seek elf bolts to hurt us? Let me go, and I'll make her rue. I'll make her howl and ring. A howl a recognition. I don't know. A manic's fury kindled under her brows. She struggled desperately to disengage herself from Linton's arms. I felt no inclination to tarry the event. Resolving to seek medical aid on my own responsibility, I quitted the chamber. Ran the fuck away, and yes, that is the correct thing to do. A crazy lady just said she's going to go after you, you run away. In passing the garden to reach the road, at the place where a bridle hook is driven into the wall, I saw... Have I finished LOR yet? No. Probably going to be going to next year. We got to the distorted ensemble. That's where we're at. I saw something white moved irregularly, evidently by another agent than the wind. Notwithstanding my hurry, I stayed to examine it, lest ever after I should have the conviction impressed on my imagination that it was a creature of the other world. My surprise and perplexity were great on discovering, by touch more than vision, Miss Isabella's Springer, Fanny suspended by a handkerchief, and nearly at its last gasp. I quickly released the animal, and lifted it into the garden. I had seen it follow its mistress upstairs, when she went to bed, and wondered how much it would have got out there. and what mischievous person had treated it so. While untying the knot around the hook, it seemed to me that I repeatedly caught the beat of horses' feet galloping at some distance. But there was such a number of things to occupy my reflections that I hardly gave the circumstance a thought, though it was a strange sound in that place at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not stuck on anything. I just finished Angela last stream, so I haven't started the ensemble, the distorted ensemble yet. We'll start that next stream. If it's correct to run away, why do people run towards yanderes? It's not the correct thing to do. It's not the correct. Also, I haven't done these hydrates. I will hydrate. Hydrating. Because people don't always do the correct thing. Because for some reason people want to put their PPs in crazy, and we have established that putting your PP in crazy is a stupid thing to do, and you shouldn't be putting your PP in crazy. Yeah. Mr. Kenneth was fortunately just issuing from his house to see a patient in the village as I came up the street, and my account of Catherine Linton's malady induced him to accompany me back immediately. He was a plain, rough man, and he made no scruple to speak his doubts of her surviving this second attack, unless she were more submissive to his directions than she had shown herself before. If she crazy, why cute, Heathcliff? Don't put your PP in crazy. You might not get it back. Yeah, that's not wrong. Nellie Dean, said he, I can't help fancying there's an extra cause for this. What has there been to do at the Grange? We've odd reports up there. A stout, hearty lass like Catherine does not fall ill for a trifle, and that sort of people should not either. It's hard work bringing them through fevers and such things. How did it begin? The master will inform you, and I answered, but you are acquainted with the Earnshaw's violent dispositions, and Miss Linton caps them all. I may say this, it commenced in a quarrel. She was struck during a tempest of passion with a kind of fit. That's her account, at least, for she flew off in the height of it, and locked herself up. Afterwards she refused to eat, and now she alternatively raves undetermined, and remains in a half-dream, knowing those about her, but having her mind filled with all sorts of strange ideas and illusions. Mr. Linton will be sorry, observed Kenneth, interrogatively. Sorry? He'll break his heart should anything happen, I replied. Don't alarm him more than necessary. Well, I told him to beware, said my companion, and he must abide the consequences of neglecting my warning. Hasn't he been intimate with Mr. Heathcliff lately? Heathcliff frequently visits the Grange, answered I, though more on the strength of the mistress having known him when a boy, than because the master likes his company. At present he is discharged from the trouble of calling, owing to some presumptuous aspirations after Miss Linton, which he manifested. I hardly think he'll be taken in again. And does Miss Linton turn a cold shoulder on him? Was the doctor's next question. I'm not in her confidence, returned I, reluctant to continue the subject. No, she's a sly one, he remarked, shaking his head. She keeps her own counsel, but she's a real little fool. I have it from good authority that last night, and a pretty night it was, she and Heathcliff were walking in the plantation at the back of your house above 2 hours, and he pressed her not to go in again, but just mount his horse away with him. My informant said she could only put him off by pledging her word of honour to be prepared on their first meeting after that. When it was to be, he didn't hear, But you urge Mr. Linton to look sharp. Oh my. So Heathcliff's been making moves while they've been distracted by Catherine being Catherine. This news filled me with fresh fears. I outstripped Kenneth and ran most of the way back. The little dog was yelping in the garden yet. I spared a minute to open the gate for it, but instead of going to the house door, it coursed up and down the snuffing grass, and would have escaped to the road had I not seized it and conveyed it with me. On ascending to Isabella's room, my suspicions were confirmed. It was empty. Had I been a few hours sooner, Mrs. Linton's illness might have arrested her rash step. But what could be done now? There was a bare possibility of overtaking them if pursued instantly. I could not pursue them, however, and I dared not rouse the family and fill the place with confusion, still less unfold the business to my master, absorbed as he was in his present calamity, and having no heart to spare for a second grief. I saw nothing for it but to hold my tongue, and suffer matters to take their course. And Kenneth being arrived, I went with a badly composed countenance to announce him. Catherine lay in a troubled sleep. Her husband has succeeded in soothing the excess of her frenzy. He now hung over her pillow, watching every shade and every change of her painfully expressive features. The doctor, on examining the case for himself, spoke hopefully to him of its having a favourable termination. If we could only preserve and round her perfect and constant tranquillity, she'll be fine. If you could have a perfect life together. I don't think that's happening, Sir Doctor. To me, he signified the threatening danger was not so much death as permanent alienation of intellect. A huge mental breakdown. I did not close my eyes that night, nor did Mr. Linton. Indeed, we never went to bed, and the servants were all up long before the usual hour, moving through the house with stealthy tread, and exchanging whispers as they encountered each other in their vocations. Yeah, exactly. With Catherine? Tranquility? With Catherine? Everyone was active but Miss Isabella, and they began to remark how sound she slept. Her brother, too, asked if she had risen, and seemed impatient for her presence, and hurt that she showed so little anxiety for her sister-in-law. I trembled lest he should send me to call her, but I was spared the pain of being the first proclaimant of her flight. One of the maids, a thoughtless girl, who had been on an early errand to Glimmerton, came panting upstairs, open-mouthed, and dashed into the chamber, crying, "Oh dear, dear, what mun we have next? Master, master, our young lady!" "Hold your noise," cried I hastily, enraged at her clamorous manner. "Speak lower, Mary. What is the matter?" said Mr. Linton. "What ails your young lady?" Okay, now I'm starting to see where Limba's company got so much inspiration. I am so excited to get to that game. She's gone! She's gone! Yon Heathcliff's run off with her! Gasped the young girl. "That is not true," exclaimed Linton, rising in agitation. "It cannot be. How has the idea entered your head? Ellen Dean, go and seek her. It is incredible. It cannot be." As he spoke, he took the servant to the door, and then repeated his demand, to know her reasons for such an assertion. "Why, I met her on the road. A lad that fetches milk here," she stammered, "and he asked whether we weren't in trouble at the Grange. I thought he meant for Mrs. Sickness, so I answered yes. Then he, somebody gone after him, I guess." I stared. He saw I knew naught about it, and told our gentleman and lady had stopped to have a horse's shoe fastened at a blacksmith shop 2 miles out of Glimmerton, not very long after midnight, and how the blacksmith's lad got up to spy who they were. She knew them both directly, and she noticed the man, Heathcliff it was. She felt certain nobody could mistake him. Besides, but a sovereign in her father's hands for payment. The lady had a cloak about her face, but having desired a sup of water, while she drank, it fell back, and she saw very plain. Heathcliff held both bridles as they rode on, and they set their faces from the village, and went as fast as the rough roads would let 'em. The lass said nothing to her father, but she's told it all over Gimmerton this morning. Oh, lordy. I ran and peeped for form's sake into Isabella's room, confirming, when I returned the servant's statement. Mr. Linton had resumed his seat by the bed on my re-entrance. He raised his eyes, reading the meaning of my blank aspect, and dropped them without giving an order or uttering a word. This poor man! It's his own fault for picking to marry Catherine of all people, to be fair. But he didn't think she'd be this bad. He didn't think that his sister was going to run off with a very questionable man. Poor Edgar, bro. Edgar is suffering. Are we to try any measures for overtaking and bringing them back? I inquired. How should we do? She went of her own accord, answered the master. She has a right to go if she pleased. Trouble me no more about her. Hereafter, she is only my sister in name, not because I disown her, but because she has disowned me. Oh, this poor guy. All he wanted was the baddie next door. He did, and the baddie was too bad for him, and it ruined his entire life. And that was all he said on the subject. He did not make a single inquiry further, or mention her in any way, except directing me to send what property she had to the house to her fresh home. In the house to her fresh home, wherever it was, when I knew it. Wow. I mean, he probably just doesn't have the energy. I don't kind of blame him on that one. After everything he just went through with Catherine, just to have that pop out, just to be like, yeah, okay, I'm done. I'm done with these crazy bitches. I don't blame him. For 2 months the fugitives remained absent. In those 2 months Mrs. Linton encountered and conquered the worst shock of what was denominated a brain fever. No mother could have nursed an only child more devoutly than Edgar tended to her. Day and night he was watching and patiently enduring all the annoyances that irritable nerves and a shaken reason could inflict. And though Kenneth remarked that what he saved from the grave would only recompense his care by forming the source of constant future anxiety, in fact, that his health and strength were being sacrificed to preserve a mere ruin of humanity. God damn! Your wife will be a ruin of humanity. Bro. He knew no limits in gratitude and joy when Catherine's life was declared out of danger, and hour after hour he would sit beside her, tracing the gradual return to bodily health, and flattering his too sanguine hopes with the illusion that her mind would settle back into its right balance also, and she would soon be entirely her former self. I mean, is it wrong though? It's not. It's absolutely not. It's in fact a very metal way of describing the situation. The first time she left her chamber was at the commencement of the following March. Commencement of the following March. Mr. Linton had put her on pillow in the morning, a handful of golden crocuses. Her eye, long stranger to any gleam of pleasure, caught them in waking, and shone delighted as she gathered them eagerly together. "These are the earliest flowers at the Heights," she exclaimed. "They remind me of the soft thaw winds and warm sunshine and nearly melted snow. Edgar, is there not a south wind? And is not the snow almost gone?" "The snow has quite gone down here, darling," he replied, her husband, "and I only see 2 white spots on the whole range of moors. The sky is blue, and the larks are singing, and the becks and brooks are all brimful. Catherine, last spring at this time, I was longing to have you under this roof. Now I wish you were a mile or 2 up those hills. The air blows so sweetly. I feel that it would cure you." It's not even been a year. It's not even been a year? Holy shit. "I shall never be there but once more," said the invalid, on days like these. "And then you'll leave me, and I shall remain forever. Next spring, you'll long again to have me under this roof, and you'll look back and think you were happy today." Linton lavished on the kindest caress, and tried to cheer her by the fondest words, but, vaguely regarding the flowers, she let the tears collect on her lashes and stream down her cheeks unheeding. We knew she was really better, and, therefore, decided that long confinement to a single place produced much of this despondency, and it might be partially removed by a change of scene. The master told me to light a fire in the many weeks deserted parlour, and to set an easy chair in the sunshine by the window, and then he brought her down, and she sat a long while enjoying the genial heat, and, as we expected, revived by the objects around her, which, though familiar, were free from the dreary associations investing her hated sick chamber. By evening, she seemed greatly exhausted, yet no arguments could persuade her to return to that apartment, and I had to arrange the parlour sofa for her bed till another room could be prepared. To obviate the fatigue of mounting and descending the stairs, we fitted up this, where you lie at present, on the same floor with the parlour, and she was soon strong enough to move from one to another, leaning on Edgar's arm, though myself she might recover, so waited on as she was. And there was double cause to desire it, for on her existence depended that of another. We cherished the hope that in a little while Mr. Linton's heart would be gladdened, and his lands secured from a stranger's grip by the birth of an heir. Oh, that would explain things. That pregnancy hormones and whatever the fuck's going on in her brain, whatever disorder she definitely has, plus pregnancy hormones, plus the drama that was going on. Yeah, this explains a lot. This explains a lot. I should mention that Isabella sent her brother some 6 weeks from her departure a short note, announcing her marriage with Heathcliff. It appeared dry and cold, but at the bottom was dotted with pencil an obscure apology, and an entreaty for kind remembrance and reconciliation. If her proceeding had offended him, asserting that she could not help it then, and being done, she had no power to repeal it. Linton did not reply to this, I believe, and in a fortnight more I got a letter which I considered odd, coming from the pen of a bride just out of the honeymoon. I'll read it, for I kept it yet. Any relic of the dead is precious, if they were valued living. Dear Ellen, it begins. I came last night to Wuthering Heights, and heard for the first time that Catherine has been, and is yet, very ill. I must not write to her, I suppose, and my brother is either too angry or too distressed to answer what I sent him. Still, I must write to somebody, and the only choice left me is you. Inform Edgar that I'd give the world to see his face again, that my heart returned to Thrushcross Grange in 24 hours after I left it, and is there at this moment, full of warm feelings for him and Catherine. I can't follow it through, though. These words are underlined. They need not expect me, and they may draw what conclusions they please, taking care, however, to lay nothing at the door of my weak will or deficient affection. The remainder of the letter is for yourself alone. I want to ask you 2 questions. The first is, how did you contrive to preserve the common sympathies of human nature when you resided... How did you contrive to preserve the common sympathies of human nature when you resided it? Oh my god, how long has she been in Wuthering Heights? A day? A day? That's probably all it takes. I could not recognize any sentiment which those around share with me. This poor girl. The second question I have great interest in is Mr. Heathcliff a man? If so, is he mad? And if not, is he a devil? I shan't tell my reasons for making this inquiry, but I beseech you explain, if you can, what I have married. That is, when you call to see me. And you must call, Ellen, very soon. Don't write, but come, and bring something from Edgar. This is the other side of the coin. Don't let crazy put its PP in you. Yes, it is! Oh, the poor, poor Lintons. They have terrible taste. Now you shall hear how I have been received in my new home, as I am led to imagine the Heights will be. It is to amuse myself that I dwell on such subjects as the lack of external comforts. They may never occupy my thoughts, except at the moment when I miss them. I should laugh and dance for joy if I found their absence was the total of my miseries, and the rest was an unnatural dream. The sun set behind the granges as we turned on the moors. By that I judged it to be 6 o'clock, and my companion halted half an hour to inspect the park and the gardens and probably the place itself, as well as he could, so it was dark when we dismounted in the paved yard of the farmhouse, and your old fellow servant Joseph issued out to receive us by the light of a dipped candle. Please, please, don't have any dialogue, Joseph. I cannot read it. He did it with a courtesy that redounded to his credit. His first act was to elevate his torch to a level with my face, squint malignantly, project his under lip and turn away. Then he took the 2 horses and led them into the stables, reappearing for the purpose of locking the outer gate, as if we lived in an ancient castle. Heathcliff stayed to speak to him, and I entered the kitchen, a dingy, untidy hole. I dare say you would not know it. It has changed since it was in your charge. By the fire stood a ruffianly child, strong in limb and dirty in garb, with a look of Catherine in his eyes and about his mouth. This is Edgar's legal nephew, I reflected. Mine in a manner. I must shake hands, and yes, I must kiss him. It is right to establish good understanding at the beginning. I approached, and attempting to take his chubby fist, said, "How do you do, my dear?" He replied in a jargon I did not comprehend. "Shall you and I be friends, Hareton?" was my next essay at conversation. An oath and a threat said to set Toddler on me if I did not frame off. Is that what he said he thinks fuck off means? Frame off! Rewarded my perseverance. "Hey, Thotler, lad," whispered the... "Hey, Thotler, lad," whispered the little wretch, rousing a half-bred bulldog from its lair in a corner. "Now wilt thou be ganging?" he asked authoritatively. Love for my life urged compliance. I stepped over the threshold and waited till the others should enter. Mr. Heathcliff was nowhere visible, and Joseph, whom I followed to the stables and requested to accompany me in, after staring and muttering to himself, screwed up his nose and replied, "Mim, mim, mim, mim. Did ever Christian body hear aught like it? Mincing and munching. How can I tell what you say?" "I say, I wish you to come with me into the house," I cried, thinking him deaf, yet highly disgusted at his rudeness. "No, me. I'm getting something else to do," he answered, and continued his work, moving his lantern jaws meanwhile, and surveying my dress and countenance. The former a great deal too fine, but the latter, I'm sure, as sad as he could desire, with sovereign contempt. I walked round the yard and through a wicket to another door, at which I took liberty of knocking, in hopes some more civil servant might show himself. After short suspense, it was opened by a tall, gaunt man without a neckerchief, and otherwise extremely sovereignly. His features were lost in masses of shaggy hair that hung on his shoulders, and his eyes, too, were like a ghostly Catherine's, with all their beauty annihilated. "What's your business here?" he demanded grimly. "Who are you?" "My name was Isabella Linton," I replied. "You've seen me before, sir. I'm lately married to Mr. Heathcliff, and he has brought me here, I suppose, by your permission." "Is he come back, then?" asked the hermit, glaring like a hungry wolf. "Yes, we came just now," I said, "but he left me by the kitchen door, and when I would have gone in, your little boy played sentinel over the place, and frightened me off by the help of a bulldog." "It's well the hellish villain has kept his word," growled my future host, searching the darkness beyond me in expectation of discovering Heathcliff. And then he indulged in soliloquy and execrations and threats of what he would have done had the fiend deceived him. I repented having tried this second entrance, and was almost inclined to slip away before he finished cursing, but ere I could execute that intention, he ordered me in. Her best option would have been to turn around and go back to Thrushcross Grange. Edgar would eventually forgive her. Oh, God. And shut and refastened the door. There was a great fire, and that was all the light in the huge apartment, whose floor had grown a uniform grey, and the once brilliant pewter dishes, which used to attract my gaze, were, when I was a girl, partook of a similar obscurity, treated by tarnish and dust. I inquired whether I might call the maid, and be conducted to a bedroom. Mr. Earnshaw Mr. Earnshaw gave no answer. He walked up and down with his hands in his pockets, apparently quite forgetting my presence, and his abstraction was evidently so deep, and his whole aspect so misanthropical, that I shrank from disturbing him again. You'll not be surprised, Ellen, at my feeling particularly cheerless, seated in worse than solitude, on that inhospitable hearth, and remembering that 4 miles distant lay my delightful home, containing the only people I loved on earth, and they might as well be the Atlantic to part us, instead of those 4 miles. I could not overpass them. I questioned with myself, where must I turn for comfort? And mind you, don't tell Edgar or Catherine. Above every sorrow beside, this rose preemanated despair at finding nobody who could or would be my ally against Heathcliff. I had sought shelter at Wuthering Heights, almost gladly, because I was secured by that arrangement from living alone with him. But he knew the people we were coming amongst, and he did not fear their intermeddling. I sat and thought a doleful time. The clock struck 8 and 9, and still my companion paced to and fro, his head bent on his breast, and perfectly silent unless a groan or a bitter ejaculation forced itself out at intervals. I listened to deject a woman's voice in the house, and filled the interim with wild regrets and dismal anticipations, which at last spoke audibly in impressive sighing and weeping. I was not aware how openly I grieved, till Earnshaw halted opposite in his measured walk, and gave me a state of newly awakened surprise. Taking advantage of his recovered attention, I exclaimed, "I'm tired with my journey, and I want to go to bed. Where is the maid-servant? Direct me to her, as she won't come to me." "We have none," he answered. "You must wait on yourself." "Where must I sleep, then?" I sobbed. I was beyond regarding self-respect, weighed down by fatigue and wretchedness. "Joseph will show you Heathcliff's chamber," said he. "Open the door, he's in there." I was going to obey, but he suddenly arrested me, and added in the strangest tone, "Be so good as to turn your lock and draw your bolt. Don't admit it." "Well," I said, "but why, Mr. Earnshaw?" I did not relish the notion of deliberately fastening myself in with Heathcliff. "Look here," he replied, pulling from his waistcoat a curiously constructed pistol, having a double-edged spring knife attached to its barrel. "God damn, that's a great temper to a desperate man, is it not? I cannot resist going up with this every night and trying his door. If once I find it open, he's done for. And if I do it invariably, even though the minute before I have been recalling 100 reasons that should make me refrain, it is some devil that urges me to thwart my own schemes by killing him. You fight against that devil for love, as long as you may. When the time comes, not all angels in heaven shall save him." I surveyed the weapon inquisitively. A hideous notion struck me. How powerful I should be possessing such an instrument. I took it from his hand and touched the blade. He looked astonished at the expression my face assumed during a brief second. It was not horror. It was covetousness. He snatched the pistol back jealously, shut the knife, and returned it to its concealment. Hindley over here with his goofy dumb gun. Thinks he's a genius. Invented a bayonet. I don't care if you tell him, said he. Put him on his guard and watch him. You know the terms we are on, I see. His danger does not shock you. What has Heathcliff ever done? I asked. In what has he wronged you to warrant this appalling hatred? Wouldn't it be wiser to bid him quit the house? No! Thundered Earnshaw. Should he offer to leave me, he's a dead man. Persuade him to attempt it, and you are a murderess. I am to lose all without a chance of retrieval? Is Hareton to be a beggar? Oh, damnation, I will have it back. I will have his gold too, and then his blood, and hell shall have his soul. It will be 10 times blacker with that guest than ever it was before. You've acquainted me, Ellen, with your old master's habits, and he is clearly on the verge of madness, like sister, like brother, I guess. He was so last night, at least. I shuddered to be near him, and thought on the servant's ill-bred moroseness as comparatively agreeable. Sorry. He now recommenced his moody walk, and I raised the latch to escape into the kitchen. Joseph was bending over the fire, peering into a large pan that spun above it, and a wooden bowl of oatmeal stood on the settle close by. The contents of the pan began to boil, and he turned to plunge his hand into the bowl. I conjectured that this preparation was probably for our supper, and being hungry, I resolved it should be eatable, so crying out sharply, "I'll make the porridge!" I removed the vessel out of his reach and proceeded to take off my hat and riding habit. Mr. Earnshaw, I continued, directs me to wait on myself. I will. I'm not going to act the lady among you, for fear I should starve. If this was a fantasy novel, you could keep about 80% of the dialogue, and it would not change a thing. This is too dramatic for a fantasy novel. Far too dramatic. Goody Lord, he muttered, sitting down and stroking his ribbed stockings from the knee to the ankle. If there's to be fresh otherings, just when I gotten used to 2 masters, if I must have a mistress set over me head, it's time to be flitting. I never did think to see today I must have the freaking accents, bro. Howdy, howdy, and how's Scots of our own. Welcome. Blah. Blah, blah, blah. If I must have a mistress set over me head, it's like time of being flitting. I never did think to see it today that I would have thought place, but I doubt it's nigh at hand. Are you aware of the genre called otome isekai? It is not dramatic enough. Is it not dramatic enough for the fantasy drama? For the fantasy genre. I don't... Otome isekai? You mean like old school isekai where it used to be a lady? It basically used to be a reverse harem kind of thing, where she just wanted to get home. This lamentation drew no notice from me. I went briskly to work, sighing to remember a period when it would have been all merry fun, but compelled speedily to drive off the remembrance. It racked me to recall past happiness, and the greater peril there was of conjuring up its apparition. The quicker the thribble ran round, the faster the handsful of meals fell into the water. Joseph beheld my style of cookery with growing indignation. "There!" he ejaculated. "Hareton, Thou wilt sup thy porridge to neglect There'll be naught but lumps as massive as my Eve. There again, flinging a ball up and all the get it off and then they'll be done with. Bang bang, and it's a mercy at the bottom of it. It was rather a rough mess, I own, when poured into the basins. 4 had been provided, and a gallon pitcher of new milk was brought from the dairy, which Hareton seized and commenced drinking, and spilling from the expansive lips. I expostulated, and desired that he should have his mug, affirming that I could not taste the liquid so dirtily. The old cynic chose to be vastly offended at this nicety, assuring me repeatedly that the barn was every bit as good as I, and every bit as wholesome, and wondering how I could fashion to be so conceited. Pure unfiltered Yorkshire. Absolutely. Although I really, is Yorkshire actually 60 miles from Liverpool? Because, like, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think this book has that wrong. Because I was thinking about it today, and I was like, no. Yorkshire is not 60 miles from Liverpool. Liverpool's much further than that. That man was having an heart attack. Well, I was having an heart attack trying to read it. Thought I was having a bloody stroke. Having a ban. That was back then and I've expanded since. Meanwhile, the infant ruffian continued sucking, and glowed up at me defyingly as he slavered into the jug. I shall have my supper in another room, I said. Have you no place you call a parlour? Parlour? He echoed sneeringly. Parlour? Nay, we had no parlours. If ye don't like we're company, there's masters, and if ye done it like master, there's us. Yeah, I got a Christmas wrapper suit. I thought I was looking for Christmas outfits for my model, and obviously there was a lot of like cute Santa dresses and stuff like that, but I was like, no, I want to be dapper. Oh, we are dapper. I feel very dapper. Then I shall go upstairs, I answered. Show me a chamber. I put my basin on a tray and went myself to fetch some more milk. With great grumblings, the fellow rose and preceded me in my ascent. We mounted to the garrets as he opened a door, now and then to look into the apartments we passed. To be fair, the little Lady Linton is doing a lot better at this than I thought she would. I did not give her enough credit that she girl-bossed her way into the kitchen, was like, okay, I have to deal with things myself, I'm making supper now, get out the way. Here's a ram, he said, at last, flinging back a cranky board on hinges. Is well enough to eat a few porridge in. Here's a pack of corn, it the corner. They're meatily clean. If you fear of mocking your grand, silk's close. Spread your handkerchief on top of it. The ram was a kind of lumber hole, smelling strong of malt and grain, various sacks of which articles were piled round, leaving a wide bare space in the middle. Why, man, I exclaimed, facing him angrily, this is not a place to sleep in. I wish to see my bedroom. Bedroom? 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 Beak room. Beak room. Ugh, trying to get the accent right. I exclaimed, facing him angrily. No. he repeated in a tone of mockery. "Yeah, see old bedrooms there? Is yon mine?" He pointed into the second garret, only differing from the first in being more naked about the walls and having a large, low, curtainless bed with an indigo-coloured quilt at one end. "What do I want with yours?" I retorted. "I suppose Mr. Heathcliff does not lodge at the top of the house, does he?" "Ah, it's Master Heathcliff's ye wantin'," cried he, as if making a new discovery. Couldn't ya said, soz, so I inonst, and then I mud I tell ya about all this work. That's just one ye couldn't see. ELS keeps that locked, and nobody's ever melds on but hizzlin' my shizzlin'. This could be the new Riz word. My hizzlin' is rizzlin' with my shizzlin' that's rizzlin'. I don't know what it means, but what is the word? Marizzlin'? No, Riz is old now, isn't it? Riz has been like a few months now, so surely is it not? Is it not? 5-page Joseph monologue. I'm fucking skipping that if that's the case. Fuck that. You've a nice house, Joseph, I could not refrain from observing, and pleasant inmates, and I think the concentration essence of all the madness in the world took up its abode in my brain the day I linked my fate with theirs. However, that is not the present purpose. There are other rooms. For heaven's sake, be quick, and let me settle somewhere. Kidding that. Them was jerks. Jerks were them. I don't think we know what half the internet lingo means nowadays. I don't think anyone does. I think, well, skibbity. Skibbity's the one where no one actually knows what it is. People just like saying it. And I get it. It's kind of a fun word to say, but skibbity riz toilet something. He made no reply to this adjuration, only plodding doggedly down the wooden steps and halting before an apartment which, from the halt and the superior quality of its furniture, I conjectured to be the best one. There was a carpet, a good one, but the pattern was obliterated by dust. A fireplace hung with cut paper dropping into pieces, and a handsome oak bedstead with apple crimson curtains of rather expensive material and modern make, but they had evidently experienced rough usage. The valances hung in festoons wrenched from their rings, and the iron rod supporting them was bent in an arc on the side, causing the drapery to trail upon the floor. What the skibbity does that mean, we don't know. I for sure heard of this book, but I have zero idea what it's about. It's about a very messy household. Drama to the max. To give you a quick update on the scene we're reading, so a man called Heathcliff has just basically bullied his way into marrying this young girl, and now he's brought her home to his crazy household, which consists of a man who very much wants to kill Heathcliff, his son, who has been both equally abused and equally neglected, and an old man who for some reason just won't leave. An old man servant who is just, he also can't speak very well. He has too thick of a Yorkshire accent to be understood. Someone should rewrite the entire of Wuthering Heights, but it's entirely internet slang. Oh my fucking god, that would be painful. The chairs were also damaged, many of them severely, and deep indentations deformed the panels of the wall. I was endeavouring to gather resolution for entering and taking possession, when my fool of a guide announced, "This is the masters. My supper by this time was cold, my appetite gone, and my patience exhausted. I insisted on being provided instantly with a place of refuge and means of repose. What the devil? Began the religious elder. The Lord bless us, the Lord forgive us. Where the hell would you gang? You married with some now. We're seen all but Ayrton's bit of the chamber. There's not another oil to leak down in the house. In the ass. Average automation. Just like me, for real. I bet Joseph speaks normally. Nellie just doesn't like him. Maybe. I was so vexed, I flung my tray and its contents on the ground, and then seated myself on the stairs, head, my face in my hands, and cried, exclaimed Joseph. Well done, Miss Cathy. Well done, Miss Cathy. How's the master Sal just tumble over 'em and them broken pots. Then we're here summit. We're here how it's too good to be. Goody for naught, Madeline. Ye deserve penning from this to Christmas, flinging precious gifts of God under footy. Ye flagsome rages. But, ma'am, mister, if ye shoe, ye spit it. God, I really don't know what I'm saying. This is why I have it on the screen. You can try read it too. He has a drug lab under the mansion. Just doesn't want to move the operations. That would make sense. With Heathcliff bides sich bonny ways, think ye. I nubbish wish he may catch ye in that pissy and I know it. That's exactly what he said. That's exactly how it's pronounced. Ah, terrible. And so he went on scolding to his den beneath, taking the candle with him. I remained in the dark. The period of reflection succeeding this silly action compelled me to admit the necessity of smothering my pride and choking my wrath, and bestirring myself to remove its effect. An unexpected aid presently appeared in the shape of Throttler, whom I now recognized as a son of our old skulker. It has spent its whelphood at the Grange, and was given by my father to Mr. Hindley. I fancy it knew me. It pushed his nose up against mine by way of salute, and then hastened to devour the porridge. Yay, dogs! While I groped from step to step, collecting the shattered earthenware, and drying the spatters of milk from the banister with my pocket handkerchief, our labours were scarcely over when I heard Enshaw's tread in the passage. My assistant tucked his tail and pressed into the wall. I stole into the nearest doorway. The dog's endeavour to avoid him was unsuccessful, as I guessed by a scutter downstairs and a prolonged, piteous yelp. I had better luck. He passed on, entered his chamber and shut the door. Directly after Joseph came up with Hareton to put him to bed. I had found shelter in Hareton's room, and the old man, seeing me, said, "There's room for both of ye and your pride. Both of ye and your pride now. I should think, sir. The hussy. It's empty. Ye may have it all to yourself and him. It allies makes a third. It'll sit your company." Hello, Boris. Welcome. It's maybe like you're speaking with marbles in your tongue. Maybe I should do this with a snack and I put it in my mouth and you're like, that more sounds like I was trying to impersonate a husky then, rather than a Joseph. I love huskies. One of my favourite things to do when I'm sad is look up very, very noisy huskies. I never want one, but they are so entertaining to watch. Gladly did I take advantage of his imitation, and the minute I flung myself into a chair by the fire, I nodded and slept. My slumber was deep and sweet, though over far too soon. Listening to you read this insane accent while reading this and playing Balatro is a great way to spend my evening. Well, I'm glad you're entertained. It's like a weird Al Yankovic said, it's hard to bargle Nowsy Zeus with all these marbles in my mouth. Mr. Heathcliff awoke me. He had just come in and demanded in his loving manner what I was doing there. I told him the cause of my staying up so late, and he had the key to our room in his pocket. The adjective "ah" gave moral offence. He swore it was not, nor ever should be, mine, and but I'll not repeat his language, nor describe his habitual conduct. He is ingenious and unresting in seeking to gain my abhorrence. I sometimes wonder at him, with an intensity that deadens my fear, yet I assure you, a tiger or a venomous serpent could not rouse terror in me equal to that which he weakens. He told me of Catherine's illness, and accused my brother of causing it, promising that I should be Edgar's proxy in suffering, till he could get a hold of him. Do I hate him? I do hate him. I am a wretched. I have been a fool. Beware of uttering one breath of this to anyone at the Grange. I shall expect you every day. Don't disappoint me, Isabella. Don't disappoint me, Isabella. Oh, Lord, this poor girl. Heathcliff's a bastard, Heathcliff's a bastard, Heathcliff's a bastard, and nobody can deny. But pretty much everyone in this book is a bastard. Heathcliff's a bastard, Catherine's a bastard, Joseph is a bastard. I kinda feel sorry for the Lintons, but they are also kinda not great. He sounds like a stand-up guy to me. Yeah, that's how you treat women. Well, Heathcliff's going off the deep end, not surprising though. It's really not. It's really not. Heathcliff and Catherine really do deserve each other. I know. It's just a shame they had to drag poor the Lintons into this. Why could they not just have married each other and then just had the whole of Wuthering Heights just implode in on itself? That would have been great. Watching Brady drink her invisible water. Yeah! The moral of the story is that rich people are bastards. Yeah! Good story. When they say match each other's freak, is this what they're talking about? They definitely do, don't they? Oh my gosh. As soon as I had persuaded this Epstein, I went to the master and informed him that his sister had arrived at the Heights and sent me a letter expressing her sorrow for Mrs. Linton's situation and her ardent desire to see him, with a wish that he would transmit to her as early as possible some token of forgiveness by me. Forgiveness? Said Linton. I have nothing to forgive her, Ellen. You may call at Wuthering Heights this afternoon if you like, and say that I am not angry, but I'm sorry to have lost her, especially as I can never think she'll be happy. It is out of the question my going to see her. However, we are eternally divided. This is the one thing I'm actually going to be mad at Edgar about, because honestly, he should forgive her. She was a young girl who pretty much got forced into this. As soon as Heathcliff was like, oh, she has a crush on me, she's mine now. And nothing stopped him. He was like a fucking tiger going after a sheep. Ugh, poor girl. Poor girl, poor girl, poor girl. And should she really wish to oblige me, let her persuade the villain she has married to leave the country. Which is apparently a death sentence for him, because Linton will then definitely not Linton, Hindley will kill him, but you know, he might deserve it at this point, so... And you won't write her a little note, sir? I asked imploringly. No, he answered. It is needless. My communication with Heathcliff's family shall be as sparing as it is with mine. It shall not exist. Mr. Edgar's coldness depressed me exceedingly, and all the way from the Grange I puzzled my brains how to put more heart into what he said when I repeated it, and how to soften his refusal of even a few lines to console Isabella. I dare say she had been on the watch for me since morning. I saw her looking through the lattice as I came up the garden causeway, and I nodded to her, but she drew back as if afraid of being observed. I entered without knocking. There never was such a dreary, dismal... There was such a dreary, dismal scene as the formerly cheerful house presented. I must confess that if I had been in the young lady's place, I would at least have swept the hearth and wiped the tables with a duster, but she already partook of the pervading spirit of neglect which encompassed her. Her pretty face was wan and listless, her hair uncurled, some locks hanging lanky down, and she carelessly twisted round her head. I'm realising that Wuthering Heights is just an ultimate isekai if you shift the POV to Isabel. Kinda! From her specifically. Because the problem is, in an ultimate isekai, the cold prince, the cold, kind of, probably, definitely abusive prince that is Heathcliff would, like, start softening up at some point. Like, there's an anime on at the moment that's kind of like an ultimate isekai, but without the isekai kind of thing. It's called Nina the Starry Bride. And currently she's with, like, the cold, definitely abusive prince who is starting to soften up. But Heathcliff's not going to soften up. That's where this one's going to divulge. There will be no softening. Only probably a baby. A baby boy. And then that baby boy will get a woman. And then that woman, and then the baby boy will die. And then Heathcliff will be sad. At least that's what we can figure out by the intro. Ultimate isekai, but from everyone else's perspective. Sorry, I must fidget. There. Isabella, I can fix him. She's given up already. It took like one day of being at Wuthering Heights and all her motivation is gone. I don't blame her. Probably she had not touched her dress since yester evening. Hindley was not there. Mr. Heathcliff sat at a table turning over some papers in his pocket-book, but he rose when I appeared, asked me how I did, quite friendly, and offered me a chair. He was the only thing there that seemed decent, and I thought he never looked better. So much had circumstances altered their positions, that he would certainly have struck a stranger as a born and bred gentleman, and his wife as a thorough little slattern. I can fix him. Wait, no, abort. Yes, yep, that's Isabella right now. She came forward eagerly to greet me, and held out one hand to take the expected letter. I shook my head. She wouldn't understand the hint, but followed me to a sideboard, where I went to lay my bonnet, and imported me in a whisper to give her directly what I had bought. Heathcliff guessed the meaning of her manoeuvres, and said, "If you have got anything for Isabella, as no doubt you have, Nelly, give it to her. You needn't make a secret of it. We have no secrets between us." "Oh, I have nothing," I replied, thinking it best to speak the truth at once. "My master bid me to tell his sister that she must not expect either a letter or a visit from him at present. He sends his love, ma'am, and his wishes for your happiness, and his pardon for the grief you have occasioned, but he thinks that after this time his household and the household he here should drop into communication, as nothing could come of keeping it up. Heathcliff, on the other hand, I can break her. And he did, easily, quickly. Mrs. Heathcliff's lips quivered slightly, and she returned to her seat in the window. Her husband took his stand on the hearthstone near me, and began to put questions concerning Catherine. I told him as much as I thought proper of her illness, and he extorted from me, by cross-examination, most of the facts connected with its origin. I blamed her, as she deserved, for bringing it all on herself, and ended by hoping that he would follow Mr. Linton's example, and avoid future interference with his family, for good or evil. I can break her, I could break him, I could break everyone! I mean, he has. He's pretty much broken Catherine at this point, whether he meant to or not. Poor Isabella's well on her way. Mr. Linton's kind of doing some... Mr. Linton was already broken by Catherine, so not much more you could break there. Nellie is somehow okay. And I don't know how. When Hareton's pretty much broken, Joseph was never fixed in the first place. Yes, I'm swearing at you. But I guess that's just a side effect of me counting like this. And, Mr. Master of the house, that I always forget the name of, has been broken for a while. Who's the main character? The main character is technically the person all this is being told to. We're getting this from the perspective of Nellie the maid, who is talking to her current master, who's the current guy living in Thrushcross Grange. For most of this book has been flashbacks, basically. This is technically all flashbacks still. Nellie deserves a raise. Nellie deserves a raise. Nellie deserves a raise. He died of a broken heart. Fed a shit ton of lead. It was tragic. To shreds, you say? Cross-examination of the facts, origins, like blah, da, 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 da. For bringing it all on herself, and ended by hoping that he would, yeah, I read that whole page. Mrs. Linton is now just recovering, I said. She'll never be like she was, but her life is spared, and if you really have a regard for her, you'll shun crossing her way again. Nay, you'll move out of this country entirely, and that you may not regret it. I'll inform you, Catherine Linton is as different now from your old friend Catherine Earnshaw, and as that young lady is different from me. Her appearance is changed greatly, her character much more so, and the person who was compelled of necessity to be her companion will only sustain his affection hereafter by the remembrance of what she once was, by common humanity and a sense of duty. Can't wait for Wuthering Heights 2, where we stops being a flashback and then we repeat the cycle. Flamingos can die of a broken heart. Yeah, I've heard that. They're sweet little guys, flamingos. Those living with Heathcliff could have dropped a piano on his head and people would believe it as an accident. They would. They would. That is quite possible, remarked Heathcliff, forcing himself to seem calm. Quite possible that your master should have nothing but common humanity and a sense of duty to fall back on. But do you imagine that I shall leave Catherine to his duty and humanity? Can you compare my feelings respecting Catherine to his? Respecting her? Before you leave this house, I must extract a promise from you that you'll get me an interview with her. Consent or refuse, I will see her. What do you say? Oh, Heathcliff, you might literally kill this woman if you go to see her again. My dude, my bro. You're married now. Or was this a vengeance marriage? Did he marry out of pure spite? I suppose that's why Heathcliff does anything. He's the king of pure spite. But well, I guess if she got married, I'll get married. I'll get married to a Linton too, watch me. If that was his idea of respect, I don't know what his idea of disrespect is. Yeah. With your aid... I say, Mr. Heathcliff, I replied, you must not. You never shall, through my means. Another encounter with you and the master would kill her altogether. Spite-pilled he is, spite-pilled. When did me and Mary ever stop anyone? I know. Heathcliff doesn't just drink haterade, he swims in a comically large pool. He do. With your aid, that may be avoided, he continued, and should there be danger of such an event, should he be the cause of adding a single trouble more to her existence, why, I think I shall be justified in going to extremes. I wish you had sincerity enough to tell me whether Catherine would suffer greatly from his loss. The fear that she would restrains me. Nelly, you need to tell me if murdering her husband would cause her issues, because I want to kill him. The fuck, Heathcliff? The fuck? Oh my god. And there you see the distinction between our feelings. And he had he been in my place, and I in his, though, I hated him with a hatred that turned my life to gall. I never would have raised a hand against him. You may look incredulous, if you please. I never would have banished him from her society as long as she desires his. Heathcliff, sweetie, you would. You wouldn't have banished him from her society. You would have buried him in the backyard, so he never would be in her society again. Heathcliff, that and marrying minors is your answer to everything. The moment her regards ceased, I would have torn out his heart and drunk his blood. He is a monster. But till then, if you don't believe me, you don't know me. Till then, I would have died by inches before I touched a single hair on his head. And yet, I interrupted, you have no scruples in completely ruining all hopes of her perfect restoration by thrusting yourself into her remembrance now, when she has nearly forgotten you, and involving her in a new tumult of discord and distress. You suppose she has nearly forgotten me? He said. Oh, Nelly, you know she has not. You know as well as I do that for every thought she spends on Linton, she has spent 1,000 on me. And at a most miserable period of my life, I had a notion of the kind. It haunted me on my return to the neighbourhood last summer, but only her own assurance could make me admit the horrible idea again, and then Linton would be nothing, nor Hindley, nor all the dreams that I ever dreamt. 2 words would comprehend my future: death and hell. Existence after losing her would be hell, yet I was a fool to fancy for a moment that she valued Edgar Linton's attachment more than mine. If he loved with all the powers of his puny being, he couldn't love as much in 80 years as I could in a day. And Catherine has a heart as deep as I have. The sea could be as readily contained in that horse trough as her whole affection be monopolized by him. Trush! He is scarcely a degree dearer to her than her dog or her horse. It is not in him to be loved like me. How can she love him in what he has not? Yeah, damn. That was a cool... Pure yandere, yes, but cool. Banish to the shadow. Could fix him. Don't fix him. No! Don't! He's not worth it! He's not worth it! He's reminding me of a movie and I can't put a finger on it. I don't know. Catherine and Edgar are as fond of each other as any two people can be, cried Isabella with sudden veracity. No one has a right to talk in that manner, and I won't hear my brothers depreciated in silence. Your brother is wondrous fond of you too, isn't he? Observed Heathcliff scornfully. He turns you adrift on the world with surprising alacrity. He is not aware of what I suffer, she replied. I didn't tell him that. You have been telling him something, then. You have written, have you? To say I was married. I did write. You saw the note. And nothing since? No. My young lady is looking sadly the worse for her change of condition, I remarked. Somebody's love comes short in her case, obviously. Whose, I may guess, but perhaps I shouldn't say. Oh, Nellie's coming out with the claws. I guess it was her own, said Heathcliff. She degenerates into a mere slut. She is tired of trying to please me uncommonly early. You'd hardly credit it, but the very morrow of our wedding she was weeping to go home. However, she'll suit this house so much the better for not being over nice, and I'll take care she does not disgrace me by rambling abroad. Well, sir, returned I hope you'll consider that Mrs. Heathcliff is accustomed to being looked after and waited on, and that she has been brought up like an only daughter, whom everyone was ready to serve. You must let her have a maid to keep things tidy about her, and you must treat her kindly. Whatever be your notion of Mr. Edgar, you cannot doubt that she has a capacity for strong attachments, or she wouldn't have abandoned her elegancies and comforts and friends of her former home to fix contentedly in such a wilderness as this with you. She abandoned them under a delusion, he answered, picturing me a hero of romance, and expecting unlimited indulgences from my chivalrous devotion. I can hardly regard her in the light of a rational creature, so obstinately has she persisted in forming a fabulous notion of my character, and acting on the false impressions she cherished. But at last I think she begins to know me. I don't perceive the silly smiles and grimaces that provoked me at first, and the senseless incompatibility of discerning that I was earnest when I gave her my opinion of her infatuation and herself. It was a marvellous effort of perspicacity to discover that I did not love her. I believed, at one time no less, that I could teach her that, and yet it is poorly learned, for this morning she announced as I found a piece of appalling intelligence that I had actually succeeded in making her hate me. A positive labour of Hercules, I assure you. If it be achieved, I have cause to return thanks. I can trust your assertion, Isabella. Are you sure that you hate me? If I let you alone for half a day, wouldn't you come sighing and wheedling to me again? I dare say you would rather I had seemed all tenderness before you. It wounds her vanity to have the truth exposed. But I couldn't care who knows that the passion was wholly on one side, and I never told her a lie about it. She cannot accuse me of showing one bit of deceitful softness. The first thing she saw me do, on coming out of the Grange, was to hang up her little dog. When she pleaded for it, the first words I uttered were a wish that I had the hanging of every being belonging to her except one. Possibly she took the exception for herself, but no brutality disgusted her. I suppose she has an innate admiration for it. I think she kinda does. Bro. If only her precious person were secure from injury. Now, was it not the depth of absurdity, of genuine idiocy for that pitiful, slavish, mean-minded brat to dream that I could love her? Tell your master, Nelly, that I never, in all my life, met such an abject thing as she is. She even disgraces the name of Linton, and I've sometimes relented from pure lack of invention in my experiments on what she could endure, and still creep shamefully cringing back. But tell him, also, to set his fraternal and magisterial heart at ease, that I keep strictly within the limits of the law. I have avoided, up to this period, giving her the slightest right to claim a separation, and, what's more, she'd thank nobody for dividing us. If she desired to go, she might. The nuisance of her presence outweighed the gratification to be derived from tormenting her. Oh, Lord, he's literally keeping her as a pet. God damn. Good Lord. Mr. Heathcliff, said I, this is talk of a madman. Your wife, most likely, is convinced you are mad, and for that reason she has borne with you hitherto. But now that you say she may go, she'll doubtless avail herself of the permission. You are not so bewitched, ma'am. Are you to remain with him of your own accord? Take care, Ellen, answered Isabella, her eyes sparkling earfully. There was no misdoubting by their expression the full success of her partner's endeavours to make himself detested. Don't put faith in a single word he speaks. He is a lying fiend, a monster, and not a human being. I've been told I might leave him before, and I've made the attempt, but I dare not repeat it. Only, Ellen, promise you'll not mention a syllable of his infamous conversation to my brother or Catherine. Whatever he may pretend, he wishes to provoke Edgar to desperation. He says he has married me on purpose to obtain power over him, and he shan't obtain it. I'll die first. I just hope, I pray, that he may forgive his diabolical prudence and kill me. The single pleasure I can imagine is to die, or to see him dead. God damn, Isabella! Okay, fair enough. This girl has some balls on her that I did not expect. Don't like the sound of a person with a collar? Good. It's not a good thing. Well, unless it's for fashion, I suppose. Or everyone consents. Or there's safe words and consent. There. That will do for the present, said Heathcliff. If you are called upon in a court of law, you'll remember her language, Nelly, and take a good look at that countenance. She's near the point which would suit me. No, you're not fit to be your own guardian, Isabella. Now, and I, being your legal protector, must retain you in my custody, however distasteful the obligation may be. Go upstairs. I have something to say to Ellen Dean in private. That's not the way. Upstairs, I tell you. Why, this is the road upstairs, child. He seized and thrust her from the room, and returned, muttering, I have no pity, I have no pity. The more the worms writhe, the more I yearn to crush out their entrails. It is a moral teething, and I grind with greater energy in proportion to the increase of pain. That's metal, bro! Goddamn. Do you understand what the word pity means? I said, hastening to resume my bonnet. Did you ever feel a touch of it in your life? Put that down, he interrupted, perceiving my intention to depart. You are not going yet. Come here now, Nelly. I must either persuade or compel you to aid me in fulfilling my determination to see Catherine, and with that without delay. I swear that I mediate no harm. I don't desire to cause any disturbance or to exacerbate or insult Mr. Linton. I only wish to hear from herself how she is, and why she has been ill. and to ask if anything I could do would be of use to her. Last night I was in the Grange Garden 6 hours, and I'll return there tonight, and every night I'll haunt the place, and every day till I find an opportunity of entering. If Edgar Linton meets me, I shall not hesitate to knock him down, and if him enough to ensure his quintessence while I stay. If his servants oppose me, I shall threaten them off with these pistols. But wouldn't it be better to prevent my coming in contact with them or their master? And you could do it so easily. I'd warn you when I came, and then you might let me in unobserved, as soon as she was alone, and watch till I departed. Your conscience quite calm, you would be hindering mischief. Heathcliff, you're a walking disturbance. He is a walking disturbance. He is. He gives the vibes of an ancient Assyrian king threatening a rival nation for realsies. He is. We don't really have a good stopping point today. So we may have to stop here, unfortunately. If you have been enjoying this wonderful read of Wuthering Heights, then I highly recommend leaving a like on this video and subscribing to the channel of Bridie Rose Smith so that you can catch it again next week while we continue the drama. Will Nellie promise to help Heathcliff, or will she give him the big middle finger and toddle off out of the house? We will find out. And if that happens, then more drama will unfold. But unfortunately, I do have to go. We have passed my 2-hour mark. Moral of the story: they toxic. Heck yeah, they are. If you are on Twitch and you would like to see this, like, have more read, then follow the Twitch too. And if you would like to aid this person in her quest of making better money from her streaming so she never has to go back to full-time work, because full-time work would make me sad and make me want to cry, you can do that in many ways, where you can go to the Patreon, where I do short stories every month. We are at the start of a new month, so there'll be a new short story coming up very soon. There will also be an exclusive stream next week where we're going to do a test run of something I'm working on for a full sort of stream series, but we're going to do a little test run on Patreon to see how it works. So if you want that behind the scenes access, you need to get Patreon or YouTube membership at the bookworm tier or up to get access to that next week. That'll be next Thursday. Sorry, one second. But you also get short stories, exclusive streams, merch discounts, and free books. With the YouTube membership, you get pretty much all of that with emotes, but you don't get the free books or the short stories. There is the Kofi, where if you like my emotes and you would like me to draw some of the emotes for your channel and your characters or whatever you wish, you can check out my Kofi commissions and commission that from me. Or you can buy short audiobooks from the Kofi store. Last but not least is the merch store, which will be closing on the 10th of December temporarily and will not be delivering to the EU after that point. So if you are from the EU and you would like any of my ebooks, first edition copies of books that I've written, bookmarks, keyrings, t-shirts, and notebook, stickers, and a soft pillow, then you are best getting your order in ASAP. If you're not in the EU, then just order anyway. Do it anyway. Treat yourself. It's nearly Christmas. You deserve a Christmas present for yourself. You can wrap it up and pretend it's from someone else. You could say it's from me, even though you paid for it. Anyway, I hope you had a wonderful time on my stream. I had fun. And I hope you had wonderful chocolate in your advent calendars today. I have a tea advent calendar, and I had a winter warmer tea today. And yeah, I think that's all. I'll be back tomorrow with, I'm not sure yet. I need to do some planning on what my streams are going to look like for next week, because we don't have Minecraft anymore, and I'm probably going to leave Elden Ring for a little bit as well. But I've got a couple games in the melting pot. But we might do a little bit more of My Hotel, because I am kind of curious to see if we can get to an ending on that at least. So maybe My Hotel. But I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll have a new schedule and everything tomorrow. But until then, I had fun. Close. Try to move it. I had fun. I hope you had fun. This has been Brand New Smith Live in the Forbidden Library. Good.